Revised numbers from the Ministry of Finance say the HST will result in nearly $500 million in savings for consumers in 2013. That's after projecting the tax would cost Ontario households about $385 million by 2013. Joining us now to make sense of it all is Nick Bontis, an award-winning professor from the DeGroote School of Business. Nick, how do you explain that flip-flop?
I don't know how to explain it. You know, when people promise that we're going to change a tax because it's going to save you some money after, and then it's not going to save you,
and
I don't know.
Is
there an election coming, Taz?
Yes, there is.
Yeah, there is an election.
I think we smell an election.
And I think that's what's happening here. Dalton is basically saying, hey, let's turn this negative into a positive. We got to win this election. At the end of the day, if you look at the analysis, it looks like if you're making $90,000 or less by the year 2013, it's probably going to convert to a savings. If you're making more than $90,000, it's not going to convert to a savings. I don't know. I'm not convinced. Let me put it to you in very, very simple terms. If I'm a consultant or a programmer and somebody hires me for $500 to do something, I used to just charge PST. Now I charge HST. Guess what? That $500 didn't change. It's now $500 plus HST. It used to be $500 plus PST. So this idea that somehow HST is going to save people money in the long run, I'm not so convinced.
Well, the government is pointing to those tax credits and the energy rebates, the 10% that you're getting. But to be fair, all of those things were known before these new revised numbers came out. So I'm with you on that one. I don't see it. The other big question is, the government is expecting that the businesses are going to pass along 90% of their savings, but I think that's a big assumption. I mean, if you're finally starting to make some money after a recession, there's no promise in there that you're going to turn around and hand the money back over, at least part of it.
Taz, you're very polite on this fine Friday afternoon. Assumption. That's probably a lie. Come on now, if you're going to make money and then all of a sudden make more money, you think you're going to pass on to the savings? I mean, it's tough for people and it's tough for corporations. And if the corporations see an inch to make a higher margin, they're going to take it. The one other thing that bothers me, Taz, about this whole thing is we keep on making predictions about 2013, 2014, 2015. Does the government even know what's going to happen next month, honestly now? So let's all take this with a grain of salt.
I think your point is well taken. Let's talk about RRSPs now. A new study finds that young Canadians are paying off their debt and saving for a house instead of putting money away into RRSPs. And my question, is that such a bad thing, given the state of the economy?
Well, I see why they're doing it, because the house is a very tangible asset. You see it every day. You live in it. You breathe in it. Whereas this retirement thing, this RRSP thing, that's something like way, way off into the future. If you're a 20-year-old, you're not thinking about 40 years from now. Not only you're not thinking about 40 years from now, but guess what? There's no such thing as mandatory retirement anymore. So could it be that our generation and the previous one was the only one to ever even use the word retirement? Potentially, these current Gen Y net Genners might not ever retire. They might work right through to their olden ages. So it makes total sense to me that they are actually taking any excess cash that they have and paying off the house first.
Is it going to serve them better off in the long term when they look at the net profit on their houses versus what you make? I mean, obviously there's a tax credit for putting money into your RRSPs, but who stands to gain the most?
Well, it's a complicated calculation, because the one thing is it's actually cheaper now to have the mortgage because interest rates are so low.
Absolutely.
So in fact, it's probably better if you have a mortgage to a certain extent. But having said that, when you're young, the power of compounding growth is significant. So if you're 20 and you start putting away $50 a month, you know, just take it right off your payroll slip and don't even think about it. $50 a month, $50 a month. By the time you're 60, you're sitting on a really, really nice big nest egg, and that $50, you never saw it, so it never bothered you.
But what about someone who's just graduated from university, maybe they got married, have a child? If you have to make a decision between paying off your debt, putting money away for a retirement, and buying a house, sometimes there just isn't $50 to spread.
No.
In which case, which of the three do you think is the best investment?
Well, I'm going to add another one. It's the one with the highest interest rate. That's the credit card. So pay that one off first.
Well, that would be your debt.
That's right.
So pay that one off. Okay. We're talking new mortgage regulations this week as well that were announced by Minister Flaherty, and there were three major changes. Maybe you could run through what they are and whether it's going to have a big effect or it's much ado about nothing.
Yeah. Well, the major changes had to do with the way that we were actually processing mortgages, the percentage that could actually be in debt, the amortization period. It's, used to be upwards of 35, 40 years. Now it's a little bit lower. The main one of the three, Taz, is actually the one related to the percentage of debt that can be financed. It used to be that you could just have 90% of it. So in other words, only 10% of it down, 90% of it could be financed. They changed the rules now, so it's only 15%. So that's actually better because we don't want too much debt. It actually used to be 5% down only in the past, and that's what caused that huge problem in the U.S. because people were just coming in with very, very low amounts of deposit and financing the whole thing. 95% of your house in terms of financing is actually too significant. So the main one that we have to worry about, which is actually a good thing in my estimation, is the fact that that 95% went down to 90, and now it's come down to 85%. So people who are looking for a new house need to come up with 15% of that amount of money, and they could finance the other 85%.
What about someone who had already banked on being able to use that extra 10%? Where are they going to come up with the 5 now if they've planned on renovations and such?
Well, that's where we have a little bit of a problem. There's a transition period where people are going to have some cash flow problems, but this actually addresses the issue, and the issue is this. A lot of people wanted to purchase that first home that was way above their means. And when you only had to put down 5%, it was easier for you to have that really, really, really big house when you should have actually only purchased a smaller, medium-sized house. So in a sense, what these new regulations are doing is actually bringing people's expectations down to earth in terms of what their cash flow can afford.
Interesting to see if the U.S. follows suit in light of what they're going through.
I hope so.
Okay, some good news. Apple earnings, Apple Inc. saying that its net income for the last quarter rose a whopping 78%, and it points to sales of the iPad and iPhones. They actually sold 7 million iPads in the quarter leading up to the holidays, 1 million more than they expected. This thing is a runaway success.
It is. It's unbelievable. In addition to the iPads, they also sold 16 million iPhones in the last quarter, which is huge numbers. You know what that translates to, Taz? It's 177,000 iPhones a day.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. You can't even imagine. Can you imagine all the stores just ching, 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 ching? It's a license to print money. So at the end of the day, what Apple has done is they basically put down the gauntlet and said, we are going to be the technology leading company of the future. The iPad obviously is a runaway success. The iPhone always has been. We know that. There's already talks of the iPad 2, the sequel, and they're increasing their iPhone functionality as well. One of the things that some analysts are saying is that theoretically Apple could become the largest company by market capitalization in the world.
Really?
Yes, it could be, because the growth just keeps on going. The momentum keeps on going. There's only one small blip in the Apple juggernaut, and that's what we call margin. Margin is the percentage of money the actual company makes for every unit they sell. Margin actually went down this last quarter. It used to be 40%, now it's 38%. So they're making 38 cents on every dollar that they're selling. When margin starts to slip, that's when you kind of see the beginning of the decline. But I'm not so worried. I think Apple still has a lot of momentum left to go.
You're still a fan.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for your time. We got a wrap. That is Bontis on Business for this week. Be sure to check out his website, nickbontis.com. Thanks.